Welcome to Dance to Heal. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen. Join me as I share stories of how dance and movement can bring healing in a way that is safe and tailored to your life. I'm a cancer survivor, mother of two, and an award-winning performer who found that movement was vital to my recovery. I created Dance to Heal Wellness and also authored the best-selling book, Outside in Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I will bring new techniques to help you on your dance journey and healing path. Are you ready to move? Dance to Heal starts now. Welcome to week 3 of October Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'm going to be really honest with you. This particular episode this month was super hard to even get started. I'm already late sending this episode. Why? Because when I planned out this month's episodes, this episode was to speak on how to get through treatment. So, trigger warning. If you don't want to know how hard it really is, you might want to bypass this episode. It's not pretty. It's not. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to go into graphic details or explicit explicit well, I'm really upset about this, folks. It was really hard. No one ever tells you that. They tell you, or we just don't talk about it because nobody wants to hear. It's under this realm of complaining for some reason, and it's not. It's not complaining. To be really honest about how hard it is, no matter how much you read or how many people you might have walked through the process, when you're personally going through it, it's indescribable. But I'm going to try and share it with you, and for those of you who actually want to know, right? And for those of you who have gotten a positive treatment, I want to share with you from one sister to someone, and you could be my brother who's going through this, right? Because men also get breast cancer. I want to show you some tips on what I did, and I wish I had known before I was in the middle of it. First and foremost, especially if you have no support. I just had a conversation with a new friend last week, and she went through it alone during the pandemic. And I still think that it is possible to do this particular tip number 1. I know it's possible for you. I'm going to envision this for you. Okay? So picture yourself as one dot. You're a circle, a little dot, like a chocolate chip. And then put a circle around yourself. That's your first layer of support. For me, that was my husband and my children to the best of their abilities. They were 14. They were really overwhelmed. They did what they could, especially when I started to deteriorate and I would go into chemo rages. Because that's a thing, by the way, chemo rages. You might want to look up that one. It gets to a point where the chemotherapy, which they've injected into our veins, it starts to infiltrate into your brain. And you're not super emotionally stable. Yeah, they had to put up with my chemo rages. I know you think I look really cute. I'm quite scary. I was really quite scary when I'm in a rage. Back to the circles. So your chocolate chips surrounded by your first layer of support. Put another circle outside of that. That is anyone outside of your immediate family. Those are friends, extended family. Put another circle outside of that. So now you kind of look like a bullseye with a chocolate chip in the middle. That third ring is everybody else. All right? So here we go. If you're the one going through treatment or about to start, you're the chocolate chip and you're allowed to dump out to the first circle encircling you. Notice you're not in any contact with the outer circles. You're not expected to. You're in a fight for your life. Real talk. You're in a fight for your life. You're not expected to deal with the other circles. That first circle around you, they're your first layer of support. That's what I want you to envision for yourself. Second layer, the extended family and friends. That first circle around you, they don't dump into you, they dump out in the other circle, and so forth. Does that make sense? So you're the chocolate chip, you're allowed to dump out into that first circle surrounding you. They're allowed to dump out into the other circle of extended family and friends. Those people are then allowed to dump out into the other people, everybody else. Did you hear what I said? Everyone who's outside of a circle, please don't dump on the inside of the people. Otherwise, no one can help the person inside who's the chocolate chip. Example, if you were sharing a story with someone or letting someone know you have this diagnosis and they cannot dump on you, they are on the other, they're on the outside circle. There were times I would be telling a friend or I would see a friend who knew I had just been diagnosed. And they would start crying and looking at me as if I was dead or on my way out the door. And that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. The doctor said to me it was going to be a battle, and they were giving me a good prognosis. I was expected to live. It wasn't going to be pretty at the end of it. They left out that detail. But they said to me, we feel we have a strong prognosis for you, which is why I went into the Western form, the modern science, the chemotherapy, the surgery, the radiation, another additional year of another type of treatment. They said I was in chemo, yet the nurses were still gowned up like it was chemo, okay? So it was pretty intensive treatment. I needed friends who could support me, around me, instead of seeking solace from me. If you're an extended family or friends, please don't do that to the person going through the treatment. Oh, cat fight. See, this is how you feel about it too. It is imperative, if you are the one in the middle of it, or you know a person and you're on the outer layers of the circle, you dump out. You don't come in and dump into the family members that is supporting the person going through it. I will stand and die on this platform about this particular thing. Why? Because, again, the person going through the treatment is in a fit for their life. When my husband was going through cancer, was it 19 years before I was going through cancer? I remember he was 26 years old at the height of his health, diagnosed with testicular cancer, a fast-growing, horrible form. And the doctor said to him, you're really lucky because about maybe 40 years. If you were born 40 years earlier, we would have nothing for you. We would ask you to put your affairs in order. And I remember the nurses saying to us very clearly, these amazing nurses in Long Island, I've right now shut out the memory of the name. Was it Long Island Jewish? The hospital, the nurses were amazing. They said to my husband, we will only make 3 years in. We want to speak with you, Mr. Cohen, about how mindset is going to be the key to you getting through the next 10 cycles of chemotherapy. These were the oncology nurses having a very candid conversation with my husband. I was in the room. They said, we've had patients. They called them patients. Or was it clients? I remember when I was going and working in New York City, we were instructed to call patients clients back then. I think it's gone back to patients now. Mr. Cohen, we've had clients diagnosed with an incurable form of cancer, And yet they would outlive their prognosis by years before they would die, not always from the original diagnosis of cancer. And conversely, we have had clients with completely curable forms of cancer decide that they were not going to make it and literally die from their own decision, in spite of the fact that we were telling them that we could completely cure their cancer. These are from nurses that were on the front line of cancer treatment. So for you, you little chocolate chip, if you're the chocolate chip inside your circle upon circle upon circle, your mindset needs to be that you are going to be centered on your own health, your own recovery process, your own focus during that time. Yes, there are people listening to this, or you know people who are single parents, or sandwiched between two generations, or going through some other horrible concurrent events. If that's the case, and you're the person you're the chocolate chip, set up your systems now. Set up your systems now. Nothing else is acceptable. Nothing else, because you would do it for someone else. So I'm sure there are other people that could do it for you. And if you're resisting this, I really want you to stop for a second. Take a breath. And envision your mind of being encircled by loving people. It's imperative you do this right now. And if you're a loved one supporter, like if your loved one's going through this, I need you to immediately flip the switch. If you're thinking that the person going through the cancer is going to be the same person has the treatment wears on. We're not. We're really not. We might pretend to be. We're not. Most of us, and I can speak this for myself, everyone's individual, and there are certain things we never talk about. There's the rage about getting it. Whether or not you have a genetic predisposition, a lot of the doctors are now seeing a deeper correlation with environment, lifestyle. Mine wasn't lifestyle per se. I had been working out completely vegan at my best strength and weight since before my pregnancy, at the time of diagnosis, when I found that lump. The only thing that really I feel completely correlated with me finding that lump was the month before I found the lump, my husband had emergency bowel obstruction surgery where he was hospitalized out of the blue. And we thought they were going to find cancer in his abdomen when they opened him up. He went in because of gas pains and then ended up being hospitalized. During that time, I was really lucky no one took my children away, because during that time, we were having a disagreement with his parents, my husband. It was really bad, really bad. Fights on phones, no one respecting his wishes except me, his wife, who had to uphold his wishes, not knowing if he was going to be alive the next day. At the same time, still parenting my one child with diabetes, both of them underage, both of them sleeping in the car. This is 5 nights of my husband in the hospital, my 2 children sleeping in the car with the 2 dogs with the doors locked, engine running all night long because my child had type 1. And I still needed to check on his blood sugars every night while I was lying on 3 chairs next to my husband's bed. Trace it back. It was also because my son had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 4 years before. Out of the blue, he almost died. I didn't catch any of the signs, and I'm an occupational therapist. Didn't know he was going into ketone acidosis, about to stroke out or have a heart attack as a little 10-year-old. Didn't know. Do I need to go further? Just more a lifetime a lifetime of unresolved traumatic things. I just hadn't processed it. It was all trapped in my body and it manifested in breast cancer. When I say manifested, it meant for me, you don't have to agree. This is the way I have found it's manifested because I was stress eating, not sleeping, not dealing with the accumulation of trauma in my body. I didn't know anything about myofascial release stretching. I didn't know anything about NLP to rework my trauma pathways. None of that. I didn't know any of that. Okay? Now is the time for you to say to your brain and get your body and mind connected that you're going to focus on yourself because I bet you, truth talk, I bet you ignored yourself up until now. And this was a screaming halt. Okay? 3 circles. Only dumping out. Think of yourself as the highest, kind of like the highest layer of wedding cake, and you're allowed to dump out to that first tier. In this circle of the wedding cake, or the circle, it's allowed to dump out to the lower levels and then outward. No one's allowed to ever, like the outside people cannot mess with friends and family, extended family, and those people, none of you on the outside are allowed to mess with the center layer, immediate family that's in support. Okay? All right? Or, you know, I give the roles, I don't mean specific people. I just want you to have those 3 circles around you. Okay? And it's very specific. You don't get to have 4 circles. That's too much. Trust me. And those of you who are already in the middle of chemo, you understand what I'm saying. And those of you at the end of it, you really understand what I'm saying. And those of you about to begin, please trust us. All right. Second thing besides your circles, the layering out. Ways to stay healthy. Why do I say that? Before pandemic and COVID and issues with masking, you masking, people around you masking when you're going through chemotherapy was a non-negotiable ask and request. Okay? I don't care what your stance on it is. When you're diagnosed with your breast cancer or any other type of cancer and you're going through active treatment, your immune system literally will be nada from the chemotherapy, radiation, other additional treatments they give you. Seriously, I had to have my chemotherapy delayed because my treatment was almost 10 years ago. This is 2024 and 2014, like 2014, it's 10 years ago this year that I was going through chemo around this time. Okay? And I got sick one time. Sick enough, I had a tendency to get bronchitis. So it escalated into that pretty quickly because I already had no immune system. I had been in chemotherapy since July into now it's October, and I got sick. And my fever shot through the roof. And they had to delay my chemotherapy about 3 weeks. That sucks. Forget about the fact that your body has no immune system, so if you get sick, it's really dangerous for you. I had to delay my treatment, which meant that it extended beyond what it should have. I started chemotherapy end of July. I should have been done by October, and instead it extended. Forget about the additional, I had to do another type of immune system, like immune suppression. It was a protein inhibitor infusion that I started October of the year before, and it went through full year, October to October. They started concurrently with some other parts of my chemotherapy. Either way, none of that I could get until I was well enough, right? And the doctors, My oncologist, amazing oncologist, did not believe me when I said, listen, you just need to give me some antibiotics, steroids, or calm down the asthma. They were very concerned, so they sent me to an infectious disease specialist who confirmed everything I knew about myself already. They said, listen, you have asthma, it's so bad because you only have normally 75% lung power to begin with. And you have a tendency, if you catch even a small cold, it can flip into bronchitis within 24 hours. It's imperative when you get a cold, especially on the chemotherapy, it's imperative that you get antibiotics and start your steroids immediately, which is basically, what I had asked the doctors for. When I say these things to you, I am not kidding, okay? And this fits neatly into the circle. You're the chocolate chip. You're the sweet thing with your with your cutie pie face mask. I used to draw lips on mine when I would go out to events because I really couldn't ask people to mask, but I would mask, bald head and everything. I would go to dance events, and honestly, I went more for the energy exchange of being in the same space as people than actually being able to dance half the time. Okay, and I would go alone, I would go with friends. Part of the other idea of staying healthy isn't to be in complete isolation, though, okay? There are some amazing products which I'm going to share with you. I think we'll have my amazing editor maybe flash some pictures of these products I'm going to share with you, has forms of staying healthy. So you're not completely in isolation, if you want to go out and be near people, okay? First of all, your loved ones, make them watch this. Ready? Tell them to come here. Hello, loved one. Please wear a mask around the person who has cancer. I'm not kidding you. It's very irresponsible. This was already a rule prior to the pandemic. You understand me? I'll die on this hill. Okay? Put your darn mask on around someone who's got cancer. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyways, so those products. We have personal ion type of infusion cloud things that there's a necklace part to it, and then it shoots you. It's called the Air Tamer. I don't have any affiliation. Hello, you should make me an affiliate. I wear a personal one. My children wear one. My husband wears one. We still mask on top of it, especially if we're around a lot of people, but we'll each wear an Air Tamer. They're very popular in Asia, I believe. We also have small personal air purifiers that have special filters in them. And then we even have a portable for larger room size air filters that have little baby HEPA filters in them. Do all those with a mask. If you can tolerate Manuka honey, there is this amazing company called Manuka Guard, M-A-N-U-K, Manuka, K-A, guard.com. Manuka Guard nasal spray, the immune system one, the one that helps you be immune to more bugs being around directly up your nose. It really clogged up my nose, and I have a CPAP machine, and that kind of was like painful because then I had to do the full mask one. Right now, I just have a little nozzle one that fits over my nose for my CPAP. Okay, I digress. So the Manuka Guard nasal spray, we in our family, we figured out that first you clean out your nostrils, like really pick all the boogies out, right? And then not with your fingers, with a tissue. Get your finger out of your nose. Did you wash your hand? Okay. And then what we do is we take a Q-tip and we spray the Manuka Guard nasal spray on the Q-tip and then put it up in your nostrils to put a barrier. It sounds excessive. Listen, other than me getting COVID one time at a dance event where people who were sick didn't tell us, I would have asked if I had known and pulled up my filters. I didn't know they were sick, and they had come from overseas to Canada. other than that, I've not gotten sick. And lately, I've been unmasking around people. And I was wearing my filter with my nasal spray and my air tamer. And knock on wood, I was just at an event, a speaking event. Everyone's talking to each other's faces. A lot of people got COVID. I did not. Okay? And I haven't had a vaccination since January. And this event was back in August. So I say this not to say that you can't get sick. I'm just saying take extra precautions for yourself. All right? Third thing, besides circles, ways to stay healthy. The fourth thing that I want you to be aware of is nature. Nature. I remember reading a lot about how healing is increased when you are near nature or in nature. I wouldn't advocate hugging a tree per se, because when you start to really start with chemo, you may end up with neuropathies, which is kind of like nerve damage in your hands and feet. So it might be dangerous for you to be walking. Just be aware of that, right? Some people never had any difficulties, and that's amazing. Woo! Some of us do, depending on the type of chemotherapy. However, most of the time, for me to suggest for you to be outside, weather permitting, outside, breathing fresh air, feeling the sunlight on your face. Essential. Essential. Okay? I remember when they gave me the final official diagnosis that I had breast cancer and I needed to start chemo. They wanted to start me immediately. This was mid-July 2014. And at the time, we had already had an RV trip planned for the family. At the time, I was on the East Coast, and this was through the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Institute. And they were wonderful, wonderful people. However, I put my foot down and I said, can this wait a week? And they kind of looked at me like, what do you mean wait a week? And I said to them, we have a family RV trip planned to go to the Outer Banks in North Carolina. And this meant we could take our RV right up to the beach and we could hear the sound of the waves. And they said, okay, you really can't delay longer than that. We have to start as soon as possible. And I remember saying, okay, great. And I still remember that trip where, it was really one of the few times I felt myself. And even afterwards, when we would still travel in the RV during my chemo, I was still reading up on a lot of articles talking about in the interim between chemotherapy treatments, how healing it was for people to be in nature, grounding, seeing, smelling nature, that it is absolutely an essential part, not just after, but during treatment to the best of your abilities, okay? And let's say you're in a situation where you can't. You can buy lights that simulate sunlight. You can look at pictures of nature. You can not fool yourself, you can substitute in your mind's eye if you can tolerate flowers. Be careful because sometimes we can't really clean those, right? But you can think about the thought of flowers. You can play running music. You can play the sound of birdsong, which constitutes safety for a lot of societies. It's kind of understood innately that the sound of birds means you're safe. Make sure you take those breaks for yourself. Okay? All right. This wasn't as bad as I thought, but it wasn't great, honestly. It's not a great time. It really wasn't. And I'm so glad that I survived it so I could share it. Those of you who are in the midst of it, I can't wait to welcome you on the other side. You can do this. Okay? All right. Until next week.
Thanks for listening to Dance to Heal with Jenny C. Cohen. Come back next time to hear stories of recovery through movement and learn more ways that you can move your body. To work with me and continue your journey, visit OutsideInRecovery.com. Are you ready to move?